With his weathered hat and thick southern accent, he walked into the real estate office just to see that mansion from the billboard, but merely pointing to the house was enough to hear, "That neighborhood isn't for you." They laughed at his clothes, his way of speaking, even his truck, but what nobody there imagined was that this simple farmer had enough money to buy more than just a house. And that's exactly what he said. "I'll buy this one and all the others on the street." Subscribe now and see how he who laughs last laughs with property deed in hand. The Oakwood Estates, located in Brentwood Heights, Los Angeles, was a bastion of opulence where high walls concealed modern architectural mansions, imported cars, and symmetrical gardens designed by renowned landscape architects. It was the kind of place where everything seemed too clean, too quiet, and where strangers were quickly noticed and almost always judged. When Samuel Richardson stepped out of his dust-covered Ford F-250, wearing a hand-woven straw hat, faded, checkered button-up shirt, and leather boots marked by the Georgia clay, it didn't take long for stares to emerge from windows with wooden blinds and anti-glare glass imported from Sweden. "This is the interested buyer?" whispered Patricia Morgan, the elite real estate agent, on the phone with her assistant. "I thought he was the driver or some service provider." The woman, with her high heels perfectly matching her navy blue suit, took a deep breath before approaching. Her manufactured smile betrayed her poorly disguised prejudice. Patricia was accustomed to serving multinational executives, heirs of traditional Los Angeles families, and famous artists, not men with southern accents and calloused hands. "Mr. Richardson, I'm Patricia Morgan from Elite Properties. Welcome to Oakwood Estates." Samuel extended a firm hand and looked the agent in the eyes without hesitation. "Pleasure, ma'am. I came to see the house as we arranged." Patricia led him to the main mansion on Magnolia Street, an imposing 2,900 square foot construction with 6 master suites, home theater, climate-controlled wine cellar, semi-Olympic pool, tennis court, and a garden that looked like it came straight out of decorating magazines. The house had been empty since the former owner, a banker, moved to London after a financial scandal. "The property is valued at $22 million, Mr. Richardson," she informed him in a tone suggesting she was wasting her time. "It's one of the most exclusive properties in Los Angeles." Samuel merely nodded and continued observing every detail, not like someone dreaming, but like someone evaluating. His dark, perceptive eyes seemed to be calculating something beyond what was visible. From the neighboring house, Helen Fairchild, president of the Homeowners Association, observed the scene with a glass of wine in hand. Beside her, Victoria, Prescott, socialite and luxury lifestyle influencer, made no effort to disguise her contempt. "This neighborhood isn't for just anyone, darling," Victoria commented with cutting irony. "Can you imagine that type of person living here? I bet he's just being nosy," Helen agreed, adjusting her pearl necklace. "Patricia should be more selective. Having money isn't the only requirement for living at Oakwood Estates. We need to maintain a certain standard." Meanwhile, inside the mansion, Samuel walked slowly, touching the walls, looking at the ceiling, and opening faucets to check the water pressure. Patricia followed him at a safe distance, discreetly checking messages on her phone, convinced that this visit would amount to nothing. "Does the house have any structural problems?" asked Samuel, surprising her. "Problems? Of course not. This is a premium property certified by the best—" "I noticed some cracks in the ceiling of the main room and moisture in the basement," he interrupted calmly. "Nothing serious, but it will need repairs." The agent turned pale. How had this simple man noticed problems that even she wasn't aware of? At the end of the visit, which lasted almost 2 hours, Samuel turned to Patricia and said, with a serene smile, "I'll buy this house and more. I'll buy all the others on this street." Patricia couldn't contain a nervous laugh. "Mr. Richardson, just this house costs $22 million. We're talking about more than $100 million to buy the entire street. Perhaps you'd like to start with something more compatible." "I have my contact information," he replied, unfazed. "I'll expect the documents to sign this week." When Samuel departed in his dusty truck, messages were already exploding in the neighborhood's WhatsApp groups. "Can you believe a hillbilly wants to buy the entire street?" wrote Victoria. Must have found a golden goose in his backyard, replied another resident with laughing emojis. No one imagined that Samuel Richardson, 58, born in a small town in rural Georgia, was the founder and CEO of Richardson Agritech, one of the largest agro-industrial companies in the country. With operations in 5 states, the company was a pioneer in sustainable agriculture, organic grain exports, and technology development for farming. The next day, while the residents of Oakwood Estates were still laughing at the supposed pretension of that simple man, Patricia received a call from the law firm Montgomery & Associates, one of the most prestigious in Los Angeles. The lawyer on the line was clear and direct. "We're representing Mr. Samuel Richardson in the acquisition of the mansion on Magnolia Street, number 100. Payment will be made in full, and my client requests expedited processing. He would also like to schedule visits to the other 6 properties on the same street." Patricia held the phone tightly, her hand trembling slightly. "Excuse me, but does Mr. Richardson really have the means to—" "Ms. Morgan," the lawyer interrupted firmly, "my client is the founder of Richardson Agritech. I suggest you research him before making any assumptions, and yes, we are prepared to offer above-market values for immediate acquisitions." Upon hanging up, Patricia rushed to Google. What she found left her breathless. Samuel Richardson, the man she had treated with disdain, had an estimated worth in the billions. His company supplied food to supermarket chains in several countries, had contracts with the government for school supplies, and a diversified portfolio that included renewable energy, forestry, and specialty grain exports. Within hours, the news spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Helen Fairchild called an emergency meeting of the Homeowners Association. In the luxurious community clubhouse, voices were raised. "We need to stop this," exclaimed Victoria, gesturing with perfectly manicured nails. "He'll ruin the character of our neighborhood. He'll turn this into, I don't know, a refuge for country folk." Richard Chen, an automotive sector entrepreneur and resident for over 15 years, disagreed. "We can't legally prevent anyone from buying properties here, and have you seen his assets? He's one of the richest men in agribusiness." "Money can't buy class," retorted Helen, adjusting her impeccably dyed grey hair. "What will happen to our status, our parties, our social circles?" What none of them knew was that Samuel had much bigger plans than simply moving to a luxury neighborhood. The decision to buy those houses wasn't driven by revenge or ostentation, it was strategic. He needed to transfer part of Richardson Agritech's administrative operations to Los Angeles and was looking for a discreet, secure, and well-structured location to house executives, researchers, and, most importantly, to establish the country's first urban-rural innovation center. While the meeting was bubbling in the community clubhouse, Samuel was dining quietly at a hotel downtown. Beside him, his daughter Lauren, an agronomist with a Harvard degree, looked worriedly at her father. "Are you sure about this, Dad? That place is a nest of vipers. You saw how they treated you." Samuel smiled, his eyes reflecting the wisdom of someone who grew up facing drought and prejudice. "Daughter, the land teaches many things. First you take care of it, then it takes care of you. That neighborhood is just land with cement on top. Now it's our turn to take care." That same night, the first contract was signed. The mansion on Magnolia Street, number 100, now officially belonged to Samuel Richardson. It was just the beginning of a transformation that no one at Oakwood Estates could imagine. 3 weeks later, Oakwood Estates lived in a state of permanent tension. 4 mansions already belonged to Samuel Richardson, who had paid generously above market value. The owners who sold first were those with financial problems or who saw the offer as an irrefusable opportunity for profit. Others resisted, among them Helen Fairchild and Victoria Prescott, who led a veiled campaign against the Southern invader, as they called Samuel behind his back. The first change came on a Wednesday morning. 3 large trucks parked in front of the main mansion. The residents expected to see rustic wooden furniture or typical Southern decorations. Instead, they watched open-mouthed as cutting-edge equipment, contemporary design furniture, and, to general amazement, a complete biotechnology laboratory arrived. "What the hell does he intend to do here?" muttered Helen, observing everything from her veranda with binoculars. The answer came immediately afterward, when a van with the discreet Richardson Agritech logo parked and 8 people emerged from it, 5 women and 3 men, all wearing casual but clearly professional clothing. They chatted animatedly in English, Spanish, and Mandarin. "They're scientists," commented Richard Chen, who was observing the scene next to Helen. "I recognized one of them. It's Francine Oliveira, a world reference in vertical farming. She worked at NASA." Helen turned pale. This wasn't in the plans. The hillbilly wasn't simply buying houses to show off. Something bigger was happening. That same afternoon, Oakwood Estates received another surprise. Samuel arrived driving his truck, but this time accompanied by a convoy of 3 luxury cars. From the first stepped out Lauren Richardson, his daughter, impeccably dressed in an Italian-cut women's suit. From the second emerged Paul Montgomery, a renowned American architect known for sustainable projects. And from the third, to everyone's amazement, the Secretary of Agriculture and the Los Angeles Innovation Secretary emerged. "It's an official visit," Victoria whispered to Helen as they spied through the window. "That man has connections in Washington." The news traveled quickly. In the neighborhood's WhatsApp groups, messages fired off rapidly. Some residents began to question whether resistance against Samuel was really sensible. After all, having a powerful businessman with good political connections as a neighbor could bring benefits. Meanwhile, in the main mansion, now transformed into an administrative center, Samuel was conducting a meeting with his team and the authorities present. Digital maps of Los Angeles projected on the walls showed Oakwood Estates highlighted in green. "The Urban Rural Innovation Center will be the first in the country," explained Lauren, pointing to the architectural plans. "We'll combine cutting-edge technology with traditional farming knowledge to create sustainable solutions for food production in urban environments." The secretary nodded, visibly impressed. "This will revolutionize how we think about food security in major cities, Samuel. You have the full support of the federal government." "Knowledge of the land can't stay just in the countryside, Mr. Secretary," Samuel replied simply. "The city also needs to learn to produce." Outside, curiosity overcame Helen's pride. Taking advantage of her status as president of the Homeowners Association, she rang the doorbell of the mansion, claiming to need to discuss neighborhood matters with the new owner. To her surprise, she was personally received by Samuel, who invited her in and to participate in the end of the meeting. Disconcerted, Helen found herself seated among PhDs, authorities, and entrepreneurs, all treating Samuel with respect and admiration that she had never imagined. "Mrs. Fairchild, we were just talking about the local community," commented Lauren, with courtesy but firmness in her gaze. "The center intends to integrate residents at every stage. In fact, we would like to invite the association for a complete presentation of the project next week." Helen swallowed hard. It was the first time she had seen Lauren in person, and the strong presence of the young executive intimidated her. How had that simple man raised such a sophisticated and articulate daughter? "Of course, we would be honored," replied Helen, trying to maintain her composure. At the end of the meeting, when everyone was leaving, Samuel asked Helen to stay for a few more minutes. Alone with her, he sat down without ceremony and offered coffee. "Mrs. Fairchild, I know that you and other residents are concerned about my arrival here," he said directly. "I understand that. Changes are scary. But I want you to know that I didn't come to destroy what you've built. I came to add to it." Helen stared at him, still suspicious. "Mr. Richardson, with all due respect, Oakwood Estates has a tradition. The families that live here seek security, comfort, and status," Samuel completed. "I won't take any of that away. On the contrary, when our project is completed, this will be the most valued community in Los Angeles. We are bringing innovation, sustainability, and international recognition." "And why did you choose our neighborhood?" she asked, finally expressing the doubt that everyone had. Samuel smiled, his eyes reflecting a mixture of determination and serenity. "Because you underestimated me, Mrs. Fairchild, and places that underestimate people are those that most need transformation." The frankness of that response completely disarmed Helen. For the first time, she looked beyond the simple appearance and thick accent and saw the man who had built an empire from nothing. In the days that followed, the change in climate at Oakwood Estates was palpable. The fifth mansion was acquired by Samuel, this time Richard Chens, who surprisingly announced that he had not only sold his property, but also become an investor in the new Innovation Center. "You need to know about the project," Richard explained, during lunch at the community club. "It's revolutionary. We're talking about vertical greenhouses, seed laboratories, an educational center open to the public, and research that can solve the problem of hunger in urban areas." Victoria rolled her eyes. "And since when do you care about hunger, Richard? Are you going to tell me you've become a philanthropist now?" "No, Victoria," he replied unfazed. "I've become an intelligent businessman. This project will increase the value of our properties by at least 30%. And what's more, the stock market is already reacting positively to Agritech shares since the announcement of the partnership with the government." This information caused a murmur among those present. Many of them were investors and understood perfectly what that meant. At another table in the club, Patricia Morgan, the agent who had initially scorned Samuel, was having lunch with potential buyers. Her discourse had completely changed. Oakwood Estates is undergoing an exclusive transformation. Soon, it will be the first sustainable high-luxury community in America, with an internationally recognized research center. It's a unique investment. Opportunity. The sixth mansion was sold the following week. Only two remained, Helen's and Victoria's. Both resisted, but for different reasons. Helen, out of pride and feeling that she was losing control over the place she had commanded for years. Victoria, out of pure prejudice and refusal to accept that someone like Samuel could belong to the same social circle as her. The big turning point happened during the official presentation of the project to the community. The clubhouse was packed, not just with residents, but also with journalists, authorities, and even celebrities interested in the concept of luxury urban agriculture. Lauren Richardson conducted the presentation masterfully, showing 3D images of the future complex, hanging gardens, intelligent glass greenhouses, laboratories with futuristic design, and common areas that integrated technology and nature in perfect harmony. Oakwood Estates will become a global reference in how high-standard communities can also be sustainable and productive, she explained. Each property will have its own automated vertical garden, producing customized organic vegetables for each family. Enthusiastic applause followed the presentation. Even Helen seemed impressed. Only Victoria maintained a closed expression. When the question session began, Victoria stood up, adjusting her designer dress. "This all looks very pretty in the slides, Miss Richardson, but the truth is that your father is destroying the character of our neighborhood, transforming a traditional residential area into an open-air laboratory." An embarrassing silence took over the room. All eyes turned to Samuel, who until then had been observing discreetly from the back of the room. To everyone's surprise, he walked calmly to the stage, gently taking the microphone from his daughter's hands. "Mrs. Prescott," he began, with a calm voice, "my family comes from rural Georgia. There we learned that when the land is good, it doesn't matter who plants, the harvest will come. This place has good land, prepared people, excellent structure. What we're doing is planting knowledge, technology, and future. If you prefer not to be part of it, I respect your decision, but know that the door will always be open." The room exploded in applause. Even some close friends of Victoria discreetly applauded. The socialite, red with embarrassment, left hastily. At the end of the event, Helen approached Samuel. Her countenance had changed. "Mr. Richardson, Samuel, I must admit that I misjudged you and your project. As president of the association, I would like to offer our official support to the Innovation Center." Samuel smiled, extending his calloused hand. "Thank you, Mrs. Fairchild. And your house, do you still intend to sell it?" Helen hesitated for a moment. "Actually, I was wondering if there might be a place for me in your project. Before I retired, I was a biology teacher. Perhaps I can contribute in some way." Samuel's smile widened. This was precisely the transformation he sought, not just of the physical space, but of people and their mindsets. There's always room for those who want to learn and teach, Mrs. Fairchild. Always. 6 months passed. Oakwood Estates was no longer the same. Of the 8 original mansions on Magnolia Street, 7 now belonged to Samuel Richardson. Only Victoria Prescott's residence remained as the last bastion of resistance, an island surrounded by what she called the Hillbillies' Empire. The transformation of the community advanced at an accelerated pace, but with surprising harmony. Contrary to what many feared, the luxurious aesthetic of the neighborhood wasn't abandoned. It was reinvented. Paul Montgomery, the renowned architect, had created a concept that integrated sophisticated design with sustainable and functional elements. The old mansions, now interconnected by suspended ecological walkways, housed different sectors of the Yi Urban Rural Innovation Center. The main property had become the administrative headquarters and visitor center. The others housed laboratories, educational spaces, experimental greenhouses, and an incubator for startups focused on urban agriculture. The most impressive was the vertical farm system installed on the sides of the buildings, creating living walls that produced vegetables, greens, and aromatic herbs in sufficient quantity to supply all residents, with surplus donated to underprivileged communities in the Los Angeles periphery. Helen Fairchild, surprising everyone, had completely embraced the project. After selling her mansion, she accepted the invitation to coordinate the center's educational program, creating bridges between scientific knowledge and public schools in the region. "I never imagined finding such a renewing purpose at this stage of life," she confessed to Richard Chen, while they observed a group of children learning about pollination in one of the greenhouses. The impact of the project had surpassed the borders of Oakwood Estates. International magazines published reports about the initiative. The value of properties in the surroundings had skyrocketed, and what was once just an isolated luxury community had become an innovation hub. Meanwhile, Victoria observed everything from her mansion, increasingly isolated. Her social media posts, previously full of social events, now were limited to veiled criticisms of the new profile of the neighborhood. Her closest friends, however, no longer shared the same opinion. One afternoon, Patricia Morgan knocked on her door with a generous proposal, which Victoria categorically refused. "This house has belonged to my family for 3 generations. I won't surrender our legacy for any amount of money." "You're fighting against the future, Victoria," Patricia warned as she left. News of the refusal reached Samuel, who received it with serenity. "I respect her decision. Everyone has their time to understand changes. Some will never understand, and that's fine." What no one expected was what would happen the following week, during the biggest storm Los Angeles had seen in decades. The torrential rain, driven by very strong winds, caused damage throughout the city. At Oakwood Estates, the sustainable drainage system installed by Samuel protected most of the structures, except Victoria's mansion. Built decades earlier with an outdated system, the property suffered severe flooding. Around 3 in the morning, emergency lights illuminated the neighborhood. Victoria, in panic, had called the fire department when she noticed water invading the ground floor. Before the authorities arrived, however, it was Samuel's team who appeared. Led by himself, they arrived with water pumps and safety equipment. "I didn't ask for your help," Victoria shouted from the second-floor window. "You don't need to ask, Mrs. Prescott," he replied, soaked by the rain. "We're neighbors." For 4 hours under intense rain, the team worked tirelessly. When the sun rose, revealing the damage, Victoria finally came down to see the result. The ground floor was compromised. Antique furniture, Persian rugs, works of art, all damaged. Samuel was still there, talking with engineers. "The foundation has been compromised. It's not safe to stay here for the next few days." Victoria, for the first time, seemed at a loss for words. "And where will I go?" It was Lauren who approached, offering a solution. "We have an apartment in the visitors' complex. You can stay there for as long as necessary at no cost or obligation." "Why are you doing this? After everything I've said and done?" Samuel smiled, his tired eyes reflecting wisdom. Because the land teaches, Mrs. Prescott. When the storm comes, it doesn't matter if the neighbor is rich or poor, if they speak properly or not. What matters is whether we extend our hand or turn our backs. Those simple words touched Victoria deeply. For the first time, she saw beyond the rustic appearance and marked accent, recognizing the true greatness of that man. 2 weeks later, already installed in the visitors' complex, Victoria surprised everyone by requesting a meeting with Samuel and Lauren. "I want to propose a different agreement," she said, placing a folder on the table. "I don't want to sell my property, but I'm willing to integrate it into the project as a partner." "How so?" asked Samuel. "My family has a tradition in the textile industry," she explained. "I abandoned the business when I got married, but I never lost interest. I've been researching your project and noticed an unexplored area: sustainable natural fibers for haute couture. We can transform my property into a research center for innovative fabrics made from fibers grown right here. I have contacts in the fashion world who would pay fortunes for exclusive and sustainable materials. From field to runway would be our slogan," she completed with renewed enthusiasm. Samuel observed with a discreet smile, "Have you always had this idea?" "No," she replied. "Honestly, it was by observing your project these days that I realized how I was wasting my knowledge. You managed to unite tradition and innovation, luxury and sustainability. I realized that I could contribute instead of just resisting." At that moment, without fanfare, the transformation that Samuel had sought from the beginning was completed. It wasn't just about buying properties, it was about changing mindsets and creating bridges between worlds that seemed irreconcilable. A year later, Oakwood Estates officially became the first integrated productive community in America. The Prescott Natural Fiber Center became an immediate success. Famous designers competed for the exclusive fabrics developed there. And Samuel, he remained the same. He still wore his straw hat when visiting the greenhouses, still spoke with his thick accent, still preferred drip coffee to any sophisticated drink. On a sunny afternoon, as they walked through the hanging gardens, Victoria commented, "What impresses me most about you? You never needed to change who you were to claim your space. While we all tried to appear what we weren't, you were simply authentic." Samuel stopped, looking at the Los Angeles horizon. "When you know the value of the land, Mrs. Prescott, you don't need to prove anything to anyone. The land isn't impressed by appearances. It responds to care, respect, and work. People deep down are the same." That night, during the official inauguration of the Fiber Center, Samuel discreetly stepped away to call his mother, Martha, in rural Georgia. "It all worked out, Mom. You were right, as always." "About what this time?" Martha laughed. "About planting respect to harvest recognition. In the end, everyone is made of the same earth." As he hung up, Samuel contemplated the complex he had created, a symbol of how tradition and innovation, simplicity and sophistication, countryside and city could not only coexist but flourish together. Oakwood Estates was just land with cement on top. And now, finally, it was being well cared for. Dear listeners, we hope that Samuel Richardson's journey has touched your hearts and inspired reflections on prejudice, authenticity, and transformation. To continue this voyage through equally captivating American stories, we've prepared a special playlist with narratives that explore other facets of our rich culture. Find it here by clicking on the icon to the left. If this story about how the wisdom of the land can transform even the most elitist environments moved you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Every day, we bring unique narratives that explore the complexity of American life in its multiple dimensions. What would you do if you were in Samuel's place? Or do you identify more with Helen's or Victoria's transformation? Share your reflections in the comments. Your opinion is valuable and helps us create stories increasingly connected with our listeners. Remember, as Samuel taught us, sometimes we need to look beyond appearances to find the true wealth in people. We hope to see you in our next story.